Okay, so good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Monday morning pajama party. We have a couple of new people, at least one that I know of, who have joined us this morning. So Hap, do you want to introduce yourself real quickly, please? You're muted. Now you're not.
Thank you. My name is Hap Connors. I'm a director with Grant Thornton Public Sector LLC. And it's a pleasure to be with you all. We have an office in Arizona and a colleague out there, Chad Kirkpatrick, and we're trying to help states and local governments facilitate the deployment of broadband. So it's a pleasure to be with you all.
Great, welcome, Hap. And one of our old friends and colleagues, Brad Zerpe. Looks like you're on, Brad. Haven't seen you in a long time.
Hey, brother, how are you, sir?
Good.
Great. Thanks for the kind words.
Yeah. You want to just say quickly who you are?
Well, I was part of the team that helped write the first grants back in our era for the state. I was the director of communications for the state's IT agency, and I worked very closely with Galen Updike, who was kind of the philosopher king and taught me a lot back in the day. And we got about $75 million in broadband grants back in that time. And I write grants for a living. Just won a $5 million grant for solar charging stations for a bus company in Anaheim.
Cool. Anybody else that's new that I've missed?
Hi, I'm Ronnie Singh, and I know some of you or some familiar names I see. Hi, Wes. And I work with the Sahorita Food Bank, and I'm part of the Better Together Coalition. And I thank you, Steve and Wes and everybody and Jeff who put me in contact with this group.
Good. I was just down in Sarita for your little party down there on the weekend. So that was fun. Anybody else that I've missed? Anybody new? Okay. Well, give me just a minute here and I'm going to share my screen. That one. Okay, so again, welcome everybody. Glad to see you all on our early Monday morning meetings. Several things that I want to just bring to your attention quickly before we jump in the meeting further. Excuse me. So our meetings June 7, 14, 21, and 28. I'll be sending out notices also about July meetings, although there will be a couple of weeks probably that I'm going to be on vacation, so we may not meet during that time. But I'll keep you up to date on that. Secondly, for those of you who haven't, we do have the participant list of people who have completed our Google form and have taken the time to fill it out. It takes 3 minutes to put your name and contact information so that we can share that with people and so forth. So if you haven't taken the time to complete our Google form, please do that. Really appreciate it. So next is that you'll hear that Mala is going to give us an update on the $7.1 billion emergency connectivity fund. A lot of stuff has been happening with that. And so she's going to kind of give us a briefing on where they are with their rules and guidelines. So that's going to be our presentation later today. Again, you can download our task force report from last week, as well as view the recording of the meeting. Again, we're recording and trying to get it available as quickly as possible. And then the last thing I want to again remind you that I have been trying to do every week a sort of a newsletter, an update of events and activities that are happening, and it's a good way to keep track of what's happening, new legislation that's coming down the pike, various important events and so forth. So if you haven't been going to that page, again, every week it's a new page. So I encourage you to, actually I'll just quickly take you to, this is our current page. And of course, we have our table of contents. And then I've kind of broken it down to events and webinars at the beginning, different events that are happening. And then, excuse me, and then news and other resources. So again, I encourage you to check out our newsletter on a regular basis. I think you'll find it to be very useful. And with that, if I can get back to my page. Let's see if I can get back this way. Okay, so moving on. Again, as always, want to thank our sponsors, Care First Health Plan, Mauricio, thank you, Valley of the Sun United Way, Satellite Broadcast and Communications Association, and Khajiit. And any of you who are providers and would like to get the recognition and visibility, have your logo, please step up. Be glad to have you as a sponsor. So I've talked about all that stuff. So let's just jump right into our updates. And Jeff, you want to start, please? And those of you who are doing your updates, please introduce yourself so people, obviously a lot of people know who you are, but there are people who don't. So Jeff, you want to start, please?
Sure. Hey, Steve. This is Jeff Sabak. I'm the State Broadband Director. A couple things. Ronnie, I just found out I'll be speaking at the Local First Rural Forum the first week of August. I think it's the 5th and the 6th in Sahuarita. Sounds like it's a pretty big event. Sounds like it's going to be great. And Hap, you mentioned Chad Kirkpatrick. Chad's a guy I've known for many, many years, and somebody I have a lot of confidence in. So if Chad's your guy in Arizona, y'all have done well. Chad used to run a lot of the IT for the state back, I believe it was under the Brewer administration.
Right.
As far as announcements, a couple things. Probably the big one is that we have retained KPMG to act as our consultant as we move forward along our highways. We're not rewriting the broadband plan from 2018. I think that Mark and others that had a big impact on that. It's a very solid plan, but we're looking very specifically at the middle mile and working with our highways to deliver capacity to our communities. So you'll hear a lot more about this program. Several of you will be asked to meet with KPMG. I'd appreciate it if you would as we get this together. Also, hopefully a lot of you received the NTIA grant information last week that we sent out. The way this grant is written, it's very unusual. It's a public-private partnership between the state and a subdivision of the state, which are counties and cities, and a private provider to deliver broadband service. There are a lot of terms and conditions that we won't go into here, but it's a great opportunity for the state to pull down some federal dollars for a key project. We've asked that if you're interested in partnering with the state, that you did get the web form filled out. There's a link on the document by Friday, the 18th of June. What this does is gives us until, I believe it's the 17th of August when the grant is due, a chance to really dig in and work together. So we are going to work and find someone in particular to work with. That does not mean that if you are not chosen, that you should abandon the project. In fact, quite the opposite. Right now, our legislature is meeting. They're tied up in a very, very difficult budget negotiation, and part of that budget negotiation is quite a bit of money for our state broadband grant, the RBDG. This is something that constitutionally they have to have all this resolved by June 30th. So we would have access to funding as early as July 1 if this worked. Our intent is to put that grant out as soon as possible, probably right after the 4th of July weekend. So again, if you're working on the partnership grant for NTIA, it will be very easy to transfer that as an application for the state grant if for whatever reason you were not chosen. Another big grant that came out last week, the NTIA tribal grant. It's $1 billion grant. These are direct payments to tribal governments. This is something that we're excited about. Obviously, we have some very sophisticated tribal organizations with groups like the Navajo Nation and the Gila River Indian community that have in-house telecoms. So we're going to work with everybody on that. In fact, we have a webinar in partnership with NTIA, the folks that are giving out the $1 billion, specifically for our tribes on Wednesday. We're the only state in the entire country that's doing that. They're going to talk specifically about this grant, strategies for this grant, and we're very excited about the process. That's really all I have today, Steve. But it's a busy time, in conjunction with what Mylan and Mala and others are doing. I think we're going to see quite a bit of money flood into the state. And the key is just to spend it wisely and build that important infrastructure for our rural communities.
So I just want to say, if you haven't participated, Jeff has done a great job in partnering with NTIA and others to put on these webinars. And if you haven't been participating, you're really missing. They've done a great job of talking about different funding sources, resources to help with planning and so forth. And most of those are already, or I believe Jeff will be on your website and also linked on our site to be able to view those webinars. So again, if you haven't been participating, I strongly encourage you to do that. Jeff, thank you so much for the work you've done on that. I think they're just awesome.
Thanks, Steve.
Hey, Steve, this is Karen. I got a quick question for Jeff.
Sure.
Jeff, on the submission form on the website, there's a section for project description and project history. Is there limitations? I'm sure you don't want a full grant narrative in those boxes. So can you give us kind of a little idea of what your expectations are for that?
Right. I mean, we certainly don't expect anybody to come up with a full grant application in 2.5 weeks. The intent is really to talk about the grant, specifically how it fits the parameters that are laid out by NTIA. Karen, you've done a lot of these, so you understand this is a very unusual grant. The public-private partnership aspect of it is unique. How will that work? Who do you want to partner with and why? The selection of areas, for example. One of the things I found fascinating was all you have to do is find one household that's not 25-3 in an area, which in one hand is fantastic. And then they flip around on the other end and they say, well, if they've received RDOF funds in the area, that's not eligible. So what I'm telling folks is to take a look at the map of the state of Arizona in these areas, overlay these federal programs and look for white spots. Look for areas that are not shaded in because they've received an RDOF grant or another grant in the last few years. There are many of those. You'd be surprised where they are. And let's find a way to do this. The amount, they say 5 million to 30 million. There are 50 states. This is their first grant. I'd be very surprised if they didn't give money to every state. So I think it's going to be a lot closer to 5 million than 30 million. And we're excited to hear what folks have to say. We have 2 weeks to work together and really grind out the specifics of the application. So we're looking for more of not a PowerPoint narrative, Karen, but something that really speaks to how this qualifies and what the benefits will be for those communities.
Perfect, thanks. And then the part about the other funding, is that still in question or has that been determined? Because I've heard a few folks say that there's some variation of RDOF funding being available in an area. Or is that clearly disqualified?
We've been very pointed, myself and my peers, in our conversations with the NTIA folks, both in writing and verbally, and RDOF seems to be a disqualifier. Okay. So I could, would that change? I haven't seen many federal grants offer flexibility, but that seems to be a bit of a disqualifier. And I'm just telling people that in advance, that way they can plan. I think that, there's ways of looking at this where, maybe you start in an area that is available and you have to build to it, for example. That would make sense. But going into an area that doesn't qualify and making that your main area probably wouldn't be a good strategy.
Yeah. Just wanted to hear from the horse's mouth. Thank you.
So Jeff, I believe, aren't there going to be other NTIA announcements coming about other funding?
Yeah, there's quite a bit coming down. And as you mentioned earlier, we're posting stuff to our website. I actually got a chance to take a look at a very comprehensive report from FEMA, of all people, about the grant program. So they seem to know everything about everything. But so we're getting them up as soon as we get direction. Some of them we're still waiting on specifics. And those are, we're putting them up in a general sense, but as we get links to the different NOFOs and such, we're putting those up as well. The intent is for folks to take a look at this and really try to figure out what you best qualify for. To put a plug in for our follow-up session from our webinar from a week ago, which is a week from this Wednesday, one of the things we want to do is we really want to talk to some communities and try to walk them through the process of looking at what is the potential problem, how much money do you need, and let's figure out how to match you with a grant. It's certainly not systemized. If we had someone like Karen Ziegler over here, I think we probably could do that. But ultimately, what we want to do is we want to make sure that people apply for the grants that have the best opportunity of success and don't waste their time and money as well. So that's what we're going to talk about a week from Wednesday in the webinar follow-up session.
So Jeff and I talked the other day, and Molly, you may also know of where do we have all of the information of all these different grant programs? Well, Jeff, will they be on your website and our website and so forth, so that it's going to be easy for people to find all these different grant programs as they're emerging?
Yeah, and again, Steve, thank you so much for posting this information, and I encourage other groups to link to the information or post it themselves. I don't think we can talk about this stuff enough.
Yeah.
The windows are smaller than you would think, and this is our opportunity to do something really special with our infrastructure in probably the next 6 to 18 months.
Well, and I've said this before, Jeff, that you've done an incredible job. I think you and I met probably the first week after you started your job. And ever since, you've been a tireless advocate for making sure that Arizona gets our piece of the pie with all these different funding programs out there.
Thanks.
So Mala, you want to,
Steve?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, Jeff, I did post something about the NTIA $1 billion fund. They just released the NOFO with the rules. So there is a commerce fact sheet and a good Benton summary that I posted. But I wanted to ask you about the US Treasury has a $10 billion, what do they call it, Coronavirus Capital Projects Fund that is applicable to many kinds of infrastructure. Rural seems favored, but also needy communities. And so broadband is one of the categories and that's 10 billion from the last package. Since it's not NTIA, it's not FCC, it's not USDA, I find that there seems to be very little visibility on it. Are you tracking that as a broadband opportunity?
Yeah, we're very involved with that, Mark. That funding can go to broadband and other infrastructure related projects. All the states are getting quite a bit of money on that. Quite frankly, the governor's office is working with that in terms of the budget and other things, working with our legislature. There's as you can imagine, I'm a advocate for spending that money. Heck, I'd spend all of it on broadband, but we have to wait and see. So, okay. I've certainly tried to make my case, and hopefully the governor's office will allocate a significant amount for broadband. And
so those are not the applications and development of projects is not with U.S. Treasury, but with the states and tribes.
It's the states and the tribes have a lot of leeway. This is something that's being handled by the folks at the Capitol. I believe, if I remember correctly, that it's not, you're not applying to the Treasury as much as qualifying your project to the Treasury and how you spend the money. The states are getting allocated quite a bit of money each, and then there's some money left over for tribes and territories and other things. I was on a call with Treasury probably 2 weeks ago. And she was very much an advocate for spending the money on broadband, which was encouraging.
Thank you. I'm going to put a link to that in the chat.
Great. So again, all these funding sources are emerging here, and we want to make sure, and of course, Jeff is working on that, to make sure everybody knows about those grants, grant opportunities, deadlines, how to apply, and so forth. So anyway, was somebody going to say something?
Yeah, Steve, I was. I just helped one of the rural counties apply for their ARPA money to the Treasury, and just right. It's just like a go on their website, put your contact information in, your authorized official information, and they already have the financial information from the previous allocations. So it's not really an application, it's just a allocation to that local government or tribe through Treasury.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Anybody else before we move on? So Mala, you want to give us an update? And of course, later on, you're going to do a more detailed overview of the Emergency Connectivity Fund.
Absolutely, thank you. And I think just to add to the answer that Jeff gave, the Treasury will siphon those applications through the governor's office, just so that it can be prioritized, is what I learned. Because broadband infrastructure could compete with other infrastructures, and the governor's office would have the big picture prioritization for that state. So that is to answer your question, Mark, and to supplement what Jeff had said earlier. And let's hope that Arizona gets its fair share of that money. So I've been following up on EBB and to see, first let me introduce myself. This is Mala Muralidharan. I'm the state E-rate coordinator for public libraries. And I work with all the public libraries in the state to help them apply to get broadband to their door and for their internal connections within the library to serve their patrons. My counterpart, Mylan Eaton, does similar work for schools, and we collaborate a lot, work together for library school consortial applications. I've been following up on EBB and with the service providers and find that a lot of them were slammed with a lot of requests earlier, but it's kind of slowing down. So we might need to do another push. Also, what I gather is that the people who are applying are people who are already on Lifeline programs. I think, Cindy, you heard similar things from Angela Seifer from NDIA, the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, which is true of Arizona as well. And I think it's because it's easier because they know about the service provider, and the service providers reached out to all of them as well. So the harder part is to try to get those who are not on Lifeline to apply for this. And that takes a lot of effort to do broadband adoption first, and then trying to get them to do the application. But of course, there are many who have used the paper applications, and we won't know how many have done that until we get some sort of analysis of the data, which I don't see anywhere yet. If anyone else has seen it, I'd be happy to know where. The second thing I want to talk about very, very briefly is that Pima County, I don't know if Michelle Simon, you're on the call today. If not, Pima County is doing a country.
I'm here, Mala.
Oh, very good, Michelle. Then maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the countywide broadband plan that you have been working to get on the road. If you would just take a couple of minutes and let us have an update on that, because you and I had a conversation, and I'm sure you've had conversations with others about this as well.
Oh, okay. Well, Pima County is in the process of gathering input, honestly, from subject matter experts about how to best move forward to create a strategic plan for not just broadband infrastructure, but for digital access throughout the county. I've had conversations with Steve and Jeff and people from the Pima County School Superintendent's Office, and some people will be reaching out to more people as we move forward with this whole process. So we're trying to make it a very detailed and comprehensive plan that not only addresses infrastructure, but it also talks about how to many components of the task force plan, that getting people devices as well as teaching them how to learn those devices, and connectivity at an affordable rate. So that means having players like Cox at the table as this process goes forward. So we'll have more in the very near future.
Thank you, Michelle. And Michelle and the Pima County staff have been doing an awesome job in broadband adoption, in trying to train people to use broadband both individually, one-on-one, as well as in group training sessions for the past several years. So thank you, Michelle, for doing such
Mala, may I interrupt to ask Michelle a question, please?
Yes, absolutely.
Michelle is Wes Brownfield, Executive Director of the Arizona Rural Schools Association and a consortium member of the Final Mile Project. How are you addressing specifically last mile connections?
That is definitely something that we will address. We had a meeting a while ago, Wes. I think you participated with Jeff and Mala and myself and Dan Hunt. And that is a very important part of the library's focus, not just Pima County's, but definitely the library's focus, because individuals that do not have that connectivity in their homes, they come to the library for assistance. And so we want to work with everybody possible to make sure that we're reaching all of those parts. So I'll definitely be reaching out to you more.
Oh, thank you. Couldn't ask for more. Thank you, Mala.
Yeah, Wes, you're actually, certainly need to be a part of that dialogue, since a lot of the effort is going to be on rural areas of Pima County. So definitely need to get your engagement. Okay.
Okay, one last thing that I want to say is that T-Mobile is unveiling a plan where they will supply, this is for EBB, where they will supply libraries and schools with laptops and devices to have them sign up patrons for EBB. So the library, they would like those libraries that are willing to do this for them, or should I say with them, to apply to them for the devices. It could be 5, it could be 20, it could be 25, whatever devices they can handle, that they can keep safe, and that when they do the application to T-Mobile for EBB, if they are the service provider, they will send them some sort of documentation to say that this patron has been approved, and they can be given the tablet or the laptop or the hotspot, and the library would just be the place that's holding it and passing it on to the patron. So not all libraries are happy to do that kind of job, but T-Mobile is offering it as an option. It would, because these patrons are familiar with the library, they may come up to the library to help them sign up for EBB. Phoenix Public Library is piloting it. And if anybody else wants to join, please call T-Mobile, and they have a customer service number on their website that will take you to whoever is dealing with this. The person who's dealing with this is the government marketing and promotions person.
So speaking of that, Mala, while we're at it, Jean Carl, I know you sent me a note that you wanted to do a briefing. We don't have a lot of time, but you want to just pick up on that. I believe that program is not just for EBB. Am I correct?
I probably would need like Steph or Roxanne to kind of update on that.
Okay. So you don't want to say anything more about it today?
No, not prepared today.
Okay. So Jean Carl is with Cox, by the way, folks. So
Okay.
just for your information. So moving on, Janet, I think I saw you online.
Yes, Steve, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to say how much I really enjoyed the NTIA workshop last week.
Excuse me, Janet, can you introduce yourself quickly, please?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Janet Major, Associate Director for Outreach Education and Facilities for the Arizona Telemedicine Program. And I've had the opportunity to also work with many people here as an advocate for broadband for the past 25 years. And it's really an exciting time because there is a lot of money, and we do want to encourage people to apply for the right grants. And there was great information at the NTIA workshop last week. And if you missed it, I put the link in because the archive is there, and you can also register for future workshops. And I do look forward to the next one. And Jeff and I have been hosting and producing grant writing workshops for several years now. And I think it's time for another one. And it's great that 2 really big deadlines just recently passed last week for big grants, but there's still a lot of great money out there. And yes, we want our fair share. One thing I wanted to share with Mala and Cindy and others is at the NTIA workshop last week, there was a great guy, Ryan Palmer, who's the board director, chief of the Telecommunications Access and Policy Division for the FCC, which manages EBB, great guy. And I had the opportunity to say, so how about that happy meter? Are we going to see on the EBB website how much money is still left? That was really important at the FCC roundtable when everybody talked about how this is going to be set up, because just as we want to encourage people for grants they can match, we sure want to encourage people to keep doing this gangbusters right now, because when the money's gone, it's gone. But we really would like to know where we are with regards to disbursement of that money. And the other great thing that I'd like to say about EBB is, you know, we're collecting this amazing data at the same time, right, to demonstrate that this should continue. And there's also a consortium of a lot of leading educational organizations and others that are putting together a consortium to demonstrate the fact that yeah, this is working great, and that we do want to together be sure that the good work continues. I also wanted to ask, I'll be attending the Arizona Rural Health Conference next week, and I'll be providing a one-page handout on their resource table that will, of course, connect people to a lot of the resources that we share, Connect Arizona, Local First Arizona, our partners and colleagues in getting out the word. But I also wanted to ask if anyone wants to send me a note in chat, if anyone has a stash of the PDF printed one-pagers about EBB in Spanish and English. I'd love to take a bunch of those with me. And if there's some already available, that'd be great. If not, I'll print some. So I wanted to ask that invitation, let people know. I'll also, you know, I'm happy to share your propaganda too, if there's anything that you would like to share in terms of a statewide conference for people who are active in the rural health program. The other thing I wanted to mention is with the telehealth BAT, you know, it's interesting to be identifying and looking at different ways that we can improve access to broadband specifically for telehealth. And I love the idea and the investment, not only federally, but statewide, to help on a county by county basis. I think it's really great to think about being able to also kind of zoom out a bit and look at the big picture for neighborhoods and how we can help build communities of action, just as has happened in Yuma and other places. And Jeff, you should please share the great day that you had in Yuma last week as well. It really does speak of how we can really make a difference when we bring all the partners to the table. And that's it for me.
Janet, did you get an answer from Ryan Palmer about feedback on the happy meter?
Well, you know, it's interesting because everything that you talked to the FCC about, including the rollout of the EBB program, is soon. So the answer was soon. And that's a quote.
Yeah, and also I have access until the end of the month for free printing. So I'll talk to you offline about the flyers I have and how we print and make the transfer.
Excellent, because I can give you a FedEx number or something, whatever it takes.
Okay.
So let's do that. Thank you so much.
All right, sure.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Janet. Sophia, it looks like you're online. Sophia Maybury with the State Department of Education, please.
Yes, hello. So I will have, this is Sophia Mayberry, the project manager on the executive team at the Arizona Department of Education. I'm excited to share that I will have a bigger update and some links to show you the work from our tech task force as it wraps up this month, next time we meet, which I believe is next week. Additionally, if you follow our social media, you may have seen that we partnered with the City of Phoenix and the Phoenix Public Library on their laptop and hotspot partnership. We use some of our federal funding to help increase the number of devices they have for their library summer lending program. And we're really excited to support that program. A great way to get laptops in people's hands for those folks who can't afford them. Like I said, I'll have more updates next week, but if anyone has any questions, I am happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions for Sophia?
You said that City of Phoenix Public Library was partnership on laptops and hotspots?
Yes, they call it the library lending program. So they lend the hotspots and laptops out to library patrons for certain periods of time.
Okay.
Okay, any questions for Sophia? Moving on, Leah, are you online today? I didn't see you, but are you here?
Hi, Steve. I am.
Oh,
online.
good.
I am on the phone. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Just a quick update. My name is Leah Marcus Peterson. I chair the Arizona Corporation Commission, and we regulate the utility industry and have limited jurisdiction in telecommunications. So just a quick update that we've seen a lot of eligible telecommunication carriers, which is a designation telecom companies need to receive to be in Arizona. A lot of those popping up on our agendas. We have an open meeting tomorrow, so you'll see even more of those. We also are continuing our work on the Arizona Universal Service Fund, which thank you to those on the task force who've sent me some of your thoughts and comments, and we're still in progress on that effort. We also regulate the 911 service in the state, so had been having a lot of conversations about redundancy, especially in rural Arizona. And also tomorrow on the agenda, I've called for an investigation of Frontier, which has had a number of outages related to 911 service, especially in the rural areas that they're covering. So we'll be having a pretty in-depth conversation related to Frontier if anyone wants to listen in. You can see all that on our website at azcc.gov. And that's it for me, unless anyone has any questions.
So Leah, what's the next step in terms of the Arizona Universal Service Fund? And is there anything else you need or want from us? Any thoughts about that?
No, unfortunately, this process moves a little slower than I think we all hoped. But our administrative law judges are taking a stab at this, at determining what kind of modifications would be made. So if people have positions that they'd like to send me an email about that I can share with my fellow commissioners and share with the judge who's putting that together for us, that would be helpful. Ultimately, and I don't want to repeat what the AUSF is and take too much time in your meeting, but we're tweaking this because it's was set up to apply to landlines only in high cost areas of the state, and we want to expand that to broadband. It's not a lot of money, but what can we do to maximize it or provide matching funds or provide as broad a definition for the use as possible? And that's what we're working through with our hearing division.
So Leah, one last thing is, if I remember correctly, and I think I actually have a link on our website that NARUC, there's a broadband task force, and they've come up with some recommendations, and I believe you've been participating on that task force.
Yeah, I'm on that that task force, and we have our conference that occurs annually coming up in mid-July in Denver. I'll be heading out for that, and we'll be having further conversations then. But yes, we've come out with our preliminary recommendations and receiving feedback now from the industry.
And I have, again, put some information on our newsletter page with a link to that report that they have come up with at this point. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Leah? If not, Derek, you want to give us a quick update on what's happening with Suncorder?
Absolutely, happy to, Steve. So good morning, everyone. Derek Masseth. I'm the Executive Director of the Suncorder Network, Arizona's Research and Education Network. Just wanted to give an update on the Lighting Up the Future efforts. Excuse me, when I last spoke of these, the plan was to have roughly 9 workshops or roundtables, right? Focused on 3 things: the availability gap, and then the adoption gap, and then the utilization gap, and doing each of those in 3 different regions. creating a 3x3 grid for 9 workshops. Well, they decided that the regional approach was likely unnecessary given the virtual nature of the events, and might actually benefit quite strongly from having kind of all regions mixed together in a roundtable. So that's the go forward plan beginning today. 4 o'clock is the first roundtable focused on the availability gap. Mark put this in the chat earlier in the meeting. So the adoption gap roundtable will be June 21st, again at 4, and then utilization gap July 12th.
Derek, if I can interrupt, that information again is also on our newsletter page. So the links to the meetings and how to register is all there.
Absolutely. Yeah, appreciate that, Steve. A quick update on our community networks, our to and through support for schools and districts and communities. We ordered the equipment to support the, we're calling it the Isaac 1 Square Mile project, right? So taking the Moya Elementary School pilot and expanding to a square mile that encompasses the Isaac School District, working with them to get connectivity into students' hands that need it in prep for fall and or summer school. And nothing to add today on the Middle Mile Highway projects. I mean, they're underway. Well, they're not. We haven't broken any ground yet. We haven't rolled any trucks yet, but the RFPs are on the streets getting ready to open those sealed bids and choose contracting partners and actually start trenching. So still targeting, late spring, early summer of 2022 for go live on the I-17 network at least. That's all.
So Derek, you've certainly Sun Corridor has moved from just being focused on the 3 universities and research into looking at supporting community colleges, K-12, and now neighborhoods and communities.
Yep. I mean, our community focus tends to be, with or alongside, an embedded member of the community. It's often a school, or in one case, it's the Welcome to America Pact, right? But yeah, we've definitely been spreading our wings a bit lately.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Keeping you busy too, huh, Derek?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Questions for Derek? If not, let's, before we move on, Tracy, Elena, any of you guys want to, Cindy, want to say anything more about what's happening with EBB here in Arizona?
I'm happy to do a quick update. Obviously, you already heard what Mala said, that the internet providers are saying mostly these are people who already have service, but I am at least encouraged that our Connect-Arizona website, specifically the EBB page, has had over 2,200 views in the last couple of weeks. And so that at least we know that's moving forward. I spoke with April Jones from the Department of Economic Security, and they're making sure that goes out. I just talked with her this morning. She's going to push it forward again through all of their systems. And then I also connected with faith communities who are using their resource centers to sign people up. And that process, the feedback I'm getting from them is that it's working. They are able to be doing it. So I think that's positive. And then excited as well to be working with Wes about bringing some computers to rural school districts. So those are mostly the updates I have.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Cindy, Elena, anybody? Molly, you've already kind of done your thing. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on. Marcelino, did you want to say anything about Pima County other than what Michelle's already said?
No, waiting to connect with Michelle. There was regarding the EBB, the outreach. There's also a question of the status of the application, not just how many are qualifying and succeeding but one of the applications that I helped work with, you know, about a month is passing by. We kind of want to see what the impact is going to be on the bill. So, you know, to know and understand the status, the clients don't really have a follow-up process. And I'm wondering if there is such a follow-up. You know, I was thinking in first terms for our own outreach efforts and seeing that we're succeeding, but for the clients themselves, is there a place where they can go and follow up on their application because it's unclear where they're at? And that could be that could be a little flag there.
Marcelino, did they apply by paper or did they apply online?
Online.
Online, they should get back a response within, according to me, that's what I heard, within 48 hours.
Yeah, I think there was a correspondence that had said that the status could take 60 to 90 days before it's determined.
Unless they had some issues about approving that particular applicant. You know,
Yeah,
I don't know. All I can say is that's what they said that they would do. And some of the applicants that I have spoken with have almost got it back. But these, again, are people who were on Lifeline. So they were already approved for Lifeline, and they got back an email within 24 hours, actually, to tell them that they are approved and they can contact their service provider for equipment or higher bandwidth.
Yeah, this was a non-Lifeline applicant that's
Customer,
qualified.
okay,
So
okay.
maybe I'll follow up with you and see if there are any other cases like that. But, you know, it's really, we kind of send our clients into the void here, you know, especially as there are different providers involved in almost every case.
And I'd really like to know those cases because those are the ones that we can follow up with USAC and see what's happening. I just don't want it to fall between the cracks and, you know, not get attention because they're busy. But let me know, Marcelino, and we'll work together in trying to figure it out.
Thank you, Mala.
When I've signed, when I've gotten, what we're doing is signing up for eligibility, and then they have to go to the providers for the final sign up for the service. But I've been having real good luck getting people eligibility status with SNAP cards and access cards. It's almost immediate. And if they may already be in the verifier system. It's the more difficult paperwork of trying to provide evidence of your financial status or your loss of income, that kind of thing. Those I think are the more difficult.
Yeah, well, so that was one of the things, is that there was, the eligibility was verified. You're eligible, you know, based on the documents submitted, but it's still with the provider is where the provider basically said, well, it can take like 60 to 90 days for us to verify.
Oh, see,
okay.
That's different.
So
Yeah.
And I think that's problematic because we're signing people up for an emergency service, which is going to take 60 to 90 days before it applies. So
The money
again,
will be
I'm just
gone.
kind of unclear on the process. Cindy, I think you're part of, well, we are hosting a resource fair tomorrow.
Yes.
In fact, and we will be getting more information out there. The library was generous in producing some flyers. We've added an additional flyer that Cindy had worked on, and that is just the list of documents needed to apply. So we want to have clients be prepared as much as possible to submit an application by having their documents available. But
Yeah, I'll be attending that tomorrow.
Excuse me. Okay, moving on just quickly. Excuse me, I thought I saw a couple. Eric Jolly, looks like you're online. I think you're new to our meetings. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm one of our I'm with T-Mobile, I'm one of our government account executives here. So just listening in, learning more about the different initiatives you guys are working towards. And like Mala had mentioned earlier, we are helping to support some of the libraries with coordinating EBB with our organization.
Okay. So we need to hear more about you know, what T-Mobile is doing. So again, I was asking Jean about, you are not just focused just on EBB at this point with the programs that you have. Am I correct about that?
That's correct. I know there's a lot of interest in the emergency connectivity fund as well. So we're trying to help support wherever we can with that, or any initiatives that the different organizations or agencies have. So whatever we can do to support, we're here to help.
Okay, so maybe next week we can get you to do a little bit more about that. Again, I know Gene had asked about that. Is there anybody else new that we haven't heard from before we move on? Guess not.
Steve?
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, I forgot. Well, I forgot to add one more thing, and that is that ASU and Common Sense are working together with the Commission on the Future of Tech to host a town hall coming up, and that'll be late June, early July. They're still kind of trying to iron out the dates and line up speakers and whatnot, but that'll be open to literally absolutely everyone. And so look for future updates from either myself or Elena.
Okay. Thank you. Elena, do you want to say anything more about that before we move on?
No, thanks, Derek, for mentioning that. I didn't, because we hadn't gotten the exact date yet, but yeah, it'll be end of the month or early July, and we're working on speakers. We have commissioners that will be hosts. Lev Gonick is most likely going to be participating from ASU, as well as some other folks, including Michael Crow. And so we're ironing out all those details now, and it should be a really interesting program.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's get on to, want to make sure we have enough time for Mala to kind of give us an update and overview what's happening with the, excuse me, the grant funding for broadband. So Mala, it's up to you, please. Emergency
Steve,
Connectivity Fund.
Steve, can you help? Let me share screen.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Can you see the screen now?
Yep.
Okay. If I can move I'm just trying to see if I can move the participants, somewhere where it's not hiding my presentation, but no worries. So you've all heard of the ECF fund. It is $7.1 billion out of the 1.9 trillion pandemic relief package in the ARPA funds. And it's governed by rules from FCC and administered by USAC, which is the E-rate company that governs the E-rate working. And it was done that way because most schools and libraries are familiar with working with E-rate through the portal that they have created for this purpose. And it is, well, I can't say it runs very smoothly, but instead of having to figure out something new, this is one way of doing it. The final rules were adopted on May 10th. But there are a lot of clarifications that we needed to get, and FCC is still working on it, and they are adding to the FAQs to let us know the answers to those questions, and you will see what those questions are as we proceed with the presentation. So who is eligible for ECF? It's mainly schools, libraries, a consortium of schools and libraries. Tribal libraries can apply, as well as public libraries. It is, although it is applicable directly to the patrons of the library and the students of the school, they cannot directly apply. It's the school or the library that has to apply on their behalf. So who are the eligible public libraries? They should be at least 50% receive their sources. The funding sources should be at least 50% from not from public sources, or they should be a nonprofit. They should be open, regular posted hours, provide service, both printed as well as non-printed, with trained staff, and submit all their reports that are required to the state library. And in addition, tribal libraries need to be recognized and supported by the tribal government. Schools, generally speaking, elementary, secondary, private, religious schools are all eligible as long as they have an endowment that is less than $50 million or they are a not-for-profit school. So then they are eligible to apply. The fund itself, what locations it would cover, they're looking to support broadband connectivity to off-campus locations, to where the students are, where the patrons are in their homes. That is where they're trying to bridge the homework gap. This is not for use in school or in the library. It is for use at home by the patrons and by the students. So again, there has been some discussion about how the service can be provided. Is it through commercial broadband providers? Is it the library or the school that is providing the access? Right now, FCC has clarified that it will be through commercial vendors, service providers, and only if the service is not available can applicants partner with the school or the library in the neighborhood for the true through and through concept to the library and through the library to the other institutions. What are the services that are eligible? It's both equipment as well as connectivity. So in the case of equipment, it's laptops, tablet computers, not desktops, Wi-Fi hotspots, modems, routers, or a combination of modems and routers. And to maximize the funding, it is one connection per location or one device per student. So the student cannot get a device from school and apply for another device through the library. But a household that has both students as well as patrons patrons who are not in school can apply and get a device through a different source. Of course, they're not getting it through the school. They could get it through the EBB program and still have a device that is separate from the device that the school has given the child. There are a lot of ineligible services. I'm not going to go through them, but I will send you can take a look at it through the presentation, but the smartphones are not allowed. Other supplementary things like the cameras, microphones, etc., are not allowed. Video conferencing equipment like Zoom, for example, are not eligible. So we're waiting to see how this pans out and what questions this would raise, because a lot of the services that the service providers are providing are bundled services, and sometimes you may not be able to unbundle them, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The FCC had initially, this is the first time that FCC did that, they actually put the draft rules out for comments. And one of the things they put in the draft rules were that they would have 2 application windows, but the way they had worded it was that the first application window that would be open was for devices already purchased between March of 2020 and May 2021. That is, devices that were purchased for the pandemic and already distributed. And then if there was money left over, they would do it for the upcoming school year. Of course, there was a lot of hue and cry about this, and many protested about that. They said that they have already got the funding from some source for it. Why again pay for devices that have already been paid for, maybe through some other nonprofit organization or whatever? So FCC listened, and they have turned it exactly 180 degrees. So the first application filing window will be open for 45 days, somewhere between July 1, for purchases made between July 1 of this year and June 30th of 2022. but the window has not opened yet. Filing window is likely to open end June or early July. And this window will be for applicants purchasing equipment for the upcoming school year. And the second, if there is funding left, that would be for goods or equipment purchase, services purchase prior to May of 2021. So, but looking at it, even though it seems like $7.1 billion is a lot of money, countrywide, it is not. So if the demand for support is larger than the amount that they currently have, the commission may then decide on a way to prioritize. And currently they're talking about prioritizing based on the discount level, and we'll come to that one screen or two after this. The program will reimburse applicants up to 100%. That is where it differs from the E-rate process. It will reimburse people 100%, the school or the library for the eligible products and services, with only two exceptions. One is that a laptop, they will reimburse, the maximum they will reimburse is $400, and the maximum they will reimburse for hotspots is $250, but that will not cover services. It is only for the hotspot itself. The services can be applied for separately, and there is what they call a phrase that they have coined saying reasonable amount. They would look at it through their review process. Other eligible equipment and services, like I said, they would look at to see if they were reasonable. Smartphones will not be approved. There is no bid process involved in this, unlike the E-rate process. No competitive bidding, but they would like people to follow their own state or local or tribal rules for purchase. I know I'm going really quickly. If you have questions, please note them. I will take them at the end of the presentation. That is so that I don't get sidetracked, and the presentation may answer some of those questions for you themselves. So USAC will put up an application form that is similar to the E-rate application form on their portal. They call it the E-rate Productivity Center portal, and it's on that portal that you have to apply. So anyone who is not familiar with that portal will need to get familiar with it. So it is going to be a tedious process trying to learn the ins and outs of it. USAC has not announced the dates, like I said, but it is likely to be end of June. So it's really not too far away. It's coming up pretty quickly. Now, since EBB and ECF are both for broadband and internet access, can a student who receives the Emergency Connectivity Fund also be a part of the EBB support at the same time? Of course, as all federal programs, it is a no. You either receive funding through EBB or through ECF. And EBB, the household applies directly, but ECF, the school or the library will apply for them. So it's completely different, but the school will have to do a needs analysis to see if a student does not have adequate service, and hence only then will sign them up. The library, on the contrary, will have to ask the patron to sign a document to say they do not have any other adequate service, and they're applying for this program. As I mentioned before, 100% cost reimbursement will be done. But how will the payment be done? Again, the payment will be through the EPIC portal, but there is an option here, unlike the E-rate process. In the E-rate process, you actually apply and pay for it upfront and then get reimbursed, or you have the service provider pay the non-discount, the the discounted portion, and you will pay the non-discounted share after that. So if a school is at a 90% discount, then they pay their 10% share only, and the 90% the service provider will claim directly from USAC. But in the ECF program, you can actually pre-reimburse, as they call it. So you can apply for the money. You don't have to have a cash flow. You can apply for the money and get it in your bank. And within 60 days, you will have to make the purchases. So this is slightly different from the E-rate program. But of course, it raises all kinds of issues, as you will see coming up. It's not as simple as it looks. The decisions to fund or not fund an applicant will not be done as they receive the applications. They will wait till all of the applications are received, till the filing window is closed, and then they will review it and process that. They have, of course, said that their deadline is 60 days to process 50% of the applications. So let's see if USAC is able to keep to that. But should the demand exceed the available funds, applications will be prioritized based, again, on the discount, the NSLP data that the school or the library has. The library, of course, the NSLP data is closely tied to the school that's nearest to it. So their libraries don't have a separate NSLP data for themselves. The NSLP is the National School Lunch Program data discounted. That's the discount that up to which the school or the library will receive. So the rural applicants will receive a 5% bump on the discount rate used to calculate the urban population. So for rural institute, library or school is at 90%, they will be given the priority as if they were 95%. They will get 100% reimbursement, of course, but they will be prioritized as if they were 95% discount over their urban counterparts. Again, the highest percentage will receive the greatest weightage for disbursement of the funds. So this raises a very interesting question, because Shelby and ALA and several other organizations actually said that this is going to create a problem, because anyone with the highest discount could apply for, let's say, 100 hotspots, saying that they need it in their area and eat the money, whereas someone at a 50% discount who is applying maybe for 10, 20 of them will not get it because they cannot reach up to that priority. So that's being discussed, and I would really like your views on that as we, a couple more slides and which tell you more about the questions, other questions that we have coming up, and I'll throw it open for questions. The filtering, SIPA filtering is required only if the device and the service is obtained through ECF. If only the device or only the service is obtained through ECF, then SIPA does not apply. SIPA is Children's Internet Protection Act, whereby you have to filter the internet going to the device to the student. There's also a 10-year documentation requirement that they've put, and applicants will be required to keep documents. And that was really a big point of contention with both ALA, the American Library Association, as well as Shelby, and even schools. You know, you would assume that schools would keep track of the devices that they give, but 10 years is a long time. The student maybe uses the device for one semester, and then you have to keep that data of who borrowed what for 10 years. And that's almost impossible. With libraries, it's even worse, because libraries usually lend through their circulation system, online circulation system, and that every so often purges the data, and libraries don't really retain data that allows personal identification. So that's really been a big point of contention. So let's see how FCC is going to address it. They said they would address it in their FAQs, but we are just waiting to see how that would pan out. Other clarifications that we have sought from FCC, other than the 10-year retention, how does the library estimate which patron has inadequate, insufficient, or unaffordable access? Because they've got to apply upfront. Would they apply for 100 devices? Would they apply for maybe 200 devices? Who knows? And how does the school buy equipment? For example, every child in the school, if they are given one tablet or a Chromebook, how does the school find out whether this child has a device at home that is adequate and that they can use for their school purposes? They haven't quite answered that question yet. And again, I talked to you about the discount, people at the lower discount not receiving funding if the demand is high. So that was my last slide. Do you have any questions? Would you like any discussion on any of this? I know we don't have too much time, but I'd be happy to take your questions and answer offline as well. Back to you, Steve.
Okay, any questions? So if you could stop sharing, please, Mala. So first of all, would you please send me your presentation? Excellent job. I think it was a great overview of that program. So one of the things we learn all the time is that these federal programs are all great and lots of opportunities, but lots of challenges and questions about how we go about applying for and what's eligible, what's not eligible. It's quite a challenge. Fortunately, we have some people like Mala here in the state and Jeff and others who are pretty knowledgeable about these programs that can help answer questions. Any other questions for Mala? So last thing before we end, again, I want to thank Henry and Oris for the great job they've done with our summarizing our meetings. But Henry, I know you raised a question with me about our people, because you spend a huge amount of time summarizing all this. Are people actually looking, reading the minutes and following up? Is it useful information? Is it worth their time to continue to spend summarizing the meetings? So any comments or thoughts anybody has?
I scan it, having been in the meeting, but I find it very useful, and hardly a week goes by that I don't forward a copy of the most recent meeting minutes to someone I'm trying to explain what we're doing to. And I also find useful that we now add the login, the sign in contact information. So especially when new people have joined, to find out how to get a hold of them and confirm who they're with and all. So I for one do find it quite useful.
Any other comments, Henry or Boris? Do you guys want to comment at all?
This is Ian. I'll comment. I find the notes very useful. I take those notes and forward them on to our senior management, and then we pick up the discussion points. So yeah, they're very conclusive and comprehensive. So I do appreciate them.
Okay. Anybody else?
I find the notes helpful.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, Mala.
Yeah, I just put in the chat that I actually use all the PDF downloads and things like that people put in the chat, especially Mark. Thank you so much. And all the links that are there are very useful as well. So please continue to do what you're doing, Horace and Henry. We really appreciate it, and really appreciate how fast you turn it around. I know you prod me sometimes to send you my notes, but I appreciate you doing this, and please continue to do it if you can.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, this is Kirk. I'll second what Mala said. You know, we listen sometimes and we multitask, and then we want to go back and look in detail and get reminded without question. Henry and Oris, it's awesome, and you have to learn it from Mark, obviously. But
I can't hear who's speaking there. That
was Kirk.
Kirk. Okay.
Sorry, Henry. This is Kirk. But no, you guys do a great job, and I think it's invaluable. And maybe that's just because I'm a procrastinator and listen with one ear and multitask. But it's to me, and then forwarding it on, like Mark said, it's priceless. And unlike ATIC, where we get the minutes, 6 or 7 minutes before the board meeting. Peter, I didn't mean, Steve, I didn't mean for you to chuckle at that.
I'm chuckling too.
Mark's chuckling inside. You guys, thank you so much, though. Seriously, it's to me, it's priceless. But I don't want to be the only guy. But it's priceless.
Well, we've heard several people. Anybody? So Henry, Oris, do you guys want to comment at all?
Well, the only comment I would have is thank you to the people who have responded, and it is gratifying to hear that these reports are useful to people. So that's good. Thank you again.
Okay. Henry, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, like there is a lot of work going into these, and we have if you look at all the meetings we've had for the last 14 months, there's a lot of information in there that people can go back to about what's going on in the state, what the presentations that are made regularly to the task force on various topics of importance, and the activities that are being undertaken by the task force to act on recommendations from our recommendations report. So hopefully people will use these reports to their advantage over time in various ways. Because, there's a lot of information there.
Great. Well, again, Oris and Henry, thank you so much. You guys have done a great amount of work, and I know it takes a lot of time and effort, and that you turn it around so quickly. So really appreciate. And I think you heard from folks here today that they find it to be tremendously useful. So hopefully that answered your question. Okay, I think we're done for today. Again, Mala, if you could send your presentation, I'd greatly appreciate it. And any other announcements, anything people want to share before we end?
This is Mark. We'll have our ATIC monthly board meeting this Wednesday at noon. All of you who have been on these calls should likely be receiving those notices. And I'll add a few people that have recently joined, but this Wednesday at noon, ATIC board.
Okay. If there's nothing else, I think we're done for today. Thank you all for joining us this morning.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Steve. Good meeting, as always. Good information.